Welcome back to The Explainer. We're just going to skip the usual preamble today because honestly, we have a fascinating visual study to jump right into. If you've ever watched a World Cup match, you know the stakes are just incredibly high, right? Tactical setups are absolutely everything. So today, we're dissecting Mexico's starting 11 for their high-stakes match against South Africa. But here's the twist. We're doing it entirely through visual evidence. We're going to highlight two absolute pillars of that squad, Israel Reyes and Julián Quiñones. We'll see how a player's physical posture, their gaze, and their positioning can literally tell us exactly what their job is on the pitch, long before the referee even blows that whistle. All right, let's get right to it.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Just look at the immediate visual contrast between these two fundamental archetypes from that starting 11. On one hand, you've got a player in a bright yellow club kit, and on the other, a player in a deep green national kit. Now, even though we're pulling from Reyes' club-level habits to examine his baseline profile here, your brain kind of immediately registers two completely opposite energies, both absolutely essential to that World Cup squad. I mean, we have this grounded, almost statuesque presence on one side, and then a totally dynamic, coiled spring of forward momentum on the other. And trust me, this isn't an accident. It's the literal physical manifestation of their positional responsibilities.
Let's just slow our pacing down for a quick, methodical moment here and look really closely at this first profile. This is Israel Reyes. He's the defensive anchor of that starting 11. Just look at his body language for a second. It's highly controlled, right? It's incredibly measured. He is completely stationary in this moment. There's no panic, no rushing around. He's acting as a literal anchor on the pitch. Think about it. When you're tasked with stopping a World Cup opposition from scoring, your baseline physical state just has to be one of absolute readiness and balance. And that is exactly what Reyes is projecting here.
And that visual projection aligns absolutely perfectly with the explicit label we have here, defender. In football, a defender's fundamental objective is just pure stability. They're the protective shield for the goal. It's kind of funny, actually. We so often think of defenders as these hulking brick walls, but honestly, to do the job right, you basically need the balance of an Olympic gymnast. You absolutely cannot afford to be off balance or caught leaning the wrong way when your primary job is to react to and completely neutralize a threat. That single word, defender, literally dictates every physical choice Reyes is making right now.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how, when we break down the specific visual data points, the physical mechanics of this defensive profile become incredibly clear. First up, we've got the explicit label of defender and that affiliation with America. Even though we're looking at his role for Mexico's starting 11, seeing him in that really distinct bright yellow kit with blue shorts, it reminds us that these defensive habits are ingrained week in and week out at the club level. But look at the physical stance itself. He is totally grounded. And the most telling detail? His foot is placed firmly right on top of the ball. That is the universal, undeniable physical sign of pausing the play, taking stock of the field, and just maintaining possession. It's absolute control. And finally, check out his focus. His gaze is directed downward and just slightly forward. He's actively managing his immediate radius, making sure the space right around him is completely secure. Seriously, it's a masterclass in the visual posture of defense.
But wow, the moment we shift to our second player, the energy entirely changes. This is Julián Quiñones, and the visual frequency here? It's immediate urgency. Where Reyes was all about control and pausing, Quiñones is all about action and pure acceleration. I mean, his posture is practically pulling him right out of the frame. This dynamic, relentless attacking energy is exactly what Mexico relied on against South Africa to penetrate the defense. It perfectly sets up the critical second half of our positional dichotomy.
And again, we get the exact label for this energy, forward. If a defender is all about creating a stable foundation and protecting territory, well, the forward is the absolute antithesis of that. This attacking directive is entirely about disruption. It's about breaking lines, moving into uncharted space, and really just forcing the issue. A forward doesn't want the game to pause. No way. They want the game to accelerate at breakneck speed.
So, let's look at the visual evidence backing up this forward label. We see him intensely focused, representing the national team in that iconic green kit with the Mexico badge, the prominent number 33 right there on his chest, and of course, that unmistakable striking blonde tip in his hair. But honestly, the posture is where the real story is told here. Just notice the dynamic forward momentum. He is physically leaning into the future of the play. Look at the action. His arm is fully extended, literally pointing ahead to exactly where he wants the ball to go or where he's about to sprint. And his focus? It's this intense gaze tracking action far downfield. He's not looking at the ground, and he certainly isn't managing his immediate radius like Reyes was. He's actively scanning for the absolute edge of the attack.
So what we're really doing here is utilizing a sort of visual forensics process.
Think of this as a tactical toolkit you can use the next time you're watching a high-stakes match or even just looking at sports photography. Step 1 is looking for the explicit context. In our case, those positional labels of defender versus forward. Step 2 is noting the affiliations, like the America Club text versus the Mexico national team badge. That gives us clues about where these habits are actually honed. But step 3, that's where the real magic happens. That's analyzing the body language and posture. It completely empowers us to read the game through the player's physical intentions, rather than just passively following the ball around.
Now, when we place these two textual labels side by side, we aren't just looking at two jobs on a team sheet. We're really looking at the core tension of football itself, which is especially magnified under the immense pressure of a World Cup setting. Defender versus forward. It is a constant, 90-minute physical debate between maintaining order and creating pure chaos. The very survival of the team depends on the defender's absolute composure under fire, and that directly clashes with the forward's mandate to just relentlessly shatter the opponent's structure.
And this brilliantly illustrates how synthesizing this data shows two entirely different temporal states happening simultaneously on the pitch. On one side, we have Israel Reyes, the defender for America in yellow and blue. He's presenting this grounded, static stance with the ball safely controlled right at his feet, meaning he is living entirely in the immediate present. Then, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we've got Julián Quiñones, the forward representing Mexico in green. He's exhibiting a dynamic, pointing stance. For Quiñones, the ball isn't even visible. His focus is entirely locked ahead on the next phase of play. So you see, one is meticulously managing the present, while the other is aggressively chasing the future.
When we bring these two tactical anchors back side by side, the full picture finally comes into focus. Now, we spent this time dissecting them as complete opposites, right? But the reality of the sport is that they are entirely codependent. Think about it. The forward momentum and aggressive risk-taking of a player like Quiñones is only strategically possible if there's a player like Reyes providing that static stability at the back. The grounded control of the defender is literally the foundation that allows the attacker the absolute freedom to point, run, and disrupt, all without leaving the team completely exposed.
Which brings us to a final thought to wrap up this explainer. I really want you to consider this question. How does the grounded, controlled stability of a defender ultimately enable the dynamic, forward-looking energy of the attacker? Seriously, the next time you watch a match, try not to just follow the ball. Watch the physical postures of the players away from the play. Watch that incredible tension between the anchors and the disruptors. Because as we've seen, this very dynamic was the absolute key to understanding Mexico's tactical setup in that crucial World Cup context against South Africa. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.